Right, that's recording. That is recording. That's on constant.
We're live.
And welcome back, everybody. This is the second episode of BGEV, where we discuss everything there is to know about electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, plug-in vehicles, anything that has to do with EVs. My name is Austin. With me is Craig today. Craig, we're going to be going over the 5 modern misconceptions about EVs. So, listen in.
We were chatting around the office and just asking people a few questions about EVs in general and what they think is maybe some discouraging factors on why they wouldn't consider looking into EVs rather than general vehicles.
Right.
So that's why we thought it would be an interesting topic, just to look at some of the most commonly misconstrued misconceptions about EVs. So one of the things that was coming up is that right now where we are in our lives, it's just not really practical to have one. So we're trying to dive a little bit deeper into the practicality of owning an EV.
Now, the practicality of EV is way more established than the practicality of like hydrogen. Hydrogen is way different and is not even remotely close to where we are, on the EV side. So, first point we're going to go over is that EVs aren't practical without an established infrastructure specific to charging stations. So, Craig, what do you got?
I think the further we get into EVs and building around, making it a lot easier and accessible for people to get around, the infrastructure is already there. It's not like EVs are a brand new thing as well.
They've been around for a very long time.
For a couple of years. If you think back, Mitsubishi was quietly coming into
with
the market.
IMEV. It was not a cute. It was a cute vehicle in the sense that it was cute because it was tiny, but it was not. It was not meant to be a bolstering masculine performance car.
That was a nice introduction into the market a couple of years ago, but already from there, that kind of infrastructure, although not as robust as what it is now, what it's looking to be, it really was there. So looking at that kind of thing, infrastructure is being put in place. You don't really need to be too concerned about it right now. A couple of days ago in Biden's infrastructure plan, I think there's $2 trillion that are going into this thing, and
that's a lot of trillions.
The money printer doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It is endless supply. But the main takeaway from this, if you want to go read about the infrastructure plan and everything like that, be my guest. This is not a PC show, we're talking about EV.
Yeah.
So, long story short there is, we've roughly got around 42,000 EV charging stations in America right now. But by the end of 2030, with this infrastructure plan in place, Biden wants to make sure we have roughly 500,000 charging stations across America.
Now, those are public charging stations too. That has nothing to do with what you're doing at your own house.
Yeah, that's obviously a commercial thing or a retail kind of aspect of it.
Right.
It's nothing to do with your personal lifestyle or where you live in your home and that kind of thing.
Right.
But just having that kind of access and plan in place for the next 8 years or whatever it's going to be to get to 2030 and the number of charging stations like that is a lot. And if you look at the big picture as well, infrastructure around that is going to be popping up because people are obviously going to be required to build these things. They're going to need to be servicing these kind of
and there's going to be more of them on the road too.
Exactly.
More EVs on the road.
Well, that kind of thing, they obviously need to work on that. So there are going to be more EVs. We can see the volume of cars and the pre-orders and that kind of thing as well. But the infrastructure around just that simple aspect of having more stations and accessibility for people to get there, that already goes into a different sphere of now you've got more job creation. You've got different kind of skill sets that need to be made around. So within the infrastructure of just that simplistic mentality of, we need to supply the stuff, there's a whole variable of factors that go with that. So it's a building infrastructure on top of an infrastructure.
Well, it's like a re-instructification, I guess, if that's even a word. I just made a word up.
Re-instructification.
The same thing happened when gas stations first started coming out. It was the same thing. Everybody started to use gas-powered vehicles even more, so obviously there's supply and demand.
Yeah, it's not a foreign concept. It's just
it's a new technology.
A different route of doing.
It's a different vein.
Exactly.
Technology. That's all it is.
Having the misconception of the infrastructure isn't there, yes and no. It's like we said, it's obviously not as robust as it will be right now or in the next couple of years. But it's something that is being worked on, and there are huge plans in the works for these kind of things. So
they're definitely going to put the money into it. I mean, this whole entire industry is changing towards the EV route, so they have to.
Well, if you're speaking about putting the money into it, the automotive market makers, they are partnering with like smaller companies and that kind of thing. There's a company called like ChargePoint.
Yeah.
So automakers will go to smaller companies, partner with them, give them a whole bunch of their money to say, okay, you are our retail partner.
Yep.
And provide services for them. And
also locations, and I mean, there's a ton of apps that are out there as well.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about infrastructure and where it is as it stands right now in 2021. Yeah, I mean, we still have room to grow, but in the next couple of years, I think that's definitely going to be something that's going to be 5 years past.
I mean, it's definitely a long-term plan. But that also kind of goes back to the thinking of, we kind of touched on it in episode 1, the range anxiety.
Point number 2 that we have for today's video, range anxiety. On average, I mean, realistically, people don't drive more than 40 miles every single day.
Yeah.
So the whole, I can only get 350 miles out of a single charge. Well, it just doesn't really make that much sense. If that's your excuse to not go for it when you have the availability of a charging station, or if you have the availability to do it at your home. And manufacturers, not just the OEs, but there's other companies that are manufacturing ways of charging this. I mean, I've watched so many videos of people converting their dryer plug, their 220 dryer plug into a charging station. So this whole mentality of range anxiety, again, it's just one of those, we're not used to it. We did the same thing when gas-powered vehicles first came out as well. If you got 300 miles to a tank, it was cool. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And the same mentality goes into what it is with EVs. Now, I understand the range anxiety with EV is a little bit different because there's not an EV charging station on, every corner.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, the average person travels around 37 miles a day.
Right.
And with the EVs that are coming out now, the average range is between 200 and 300 miles. I mean, what does that work out to? It's like the same as a tank of gas.
Yeah,
so
and I think at that point too, though, you have to have the thought process, correct?
Yeah.
But you also have to have the planning process and also your routine.
Yeah.
Because people aren't routinely going home to plug the cars in.
Yeah.
Some people listening have EVs, so they're already in that routine. But for someone who doesn't have an EV, it's a complete change of thought. Like when you go home, you unlock your door. When you go home, you turn down the AC. That kind of thought process it has to change.
It just goes into your daily routine. And I mean, obviously for pretty much everyone, our daily routines have kind of been shot the last couple of months. So, I mean, it shouldn't really be too much of a shock to the system. I mean, just make sure that your car is charged. You can wake up in the morning and it's there.
Yeah, if you want to go out to get coffee, just make sure you unplug your car first. That's all.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of videos of people driving around with their little electric
dongles,
cables.
which by the word is one of the best words ever invented in the human language. Dongle. Just going to throw that out there. And then, for example, just a couple of fun stats here. I mean, Tesla's claiming the new Roadster, even though it's been put off like 4 or 5 times as far as production, they're saying it goes about 620 miles per charge,
which is really not bad if you think about, okay, if you can't really work out distance, I'm not really too good at it, but 300 miles is what, like LA to Vegas?
Yeah. Plus their charging network. I mean, it's a supercharge stations and stuff like that. They have that whole thing on lockdown. So, my thoughts are it's just a thing of somebody's got a new routine to get used to, something to change into, and just to get used to it. But the reality of it, I don't think range anxiety is really something that it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
I think what comes into that anxiety as well is, because you're looking at it from a different perspective, and it is a newer industry. You have this anxiety about range and what all it goes into, because you're changing your routine about your going about your every single day life.
We're creatures of habit.
Exactly. But then, are you starting to think about everything that goes into having an electric vehicle? What are the cost repercussions of these kind of things? Am I going to be saving money if I'm not spending gas, or what all is involved? Now that I'm changing my daily routine, I need to think about different aspects of owning a different kind of vehicle.
Which leads into, and that's the reason why I was holding up 3 fingers, which was point number 3, that electric cars are more expensive to maintain than a gas-powered vehicle.
Yeah.
They're not.
No. If you do quick maths as well, just something as simple as changing your oil.
Yeah.
Just to make this easy for me, average oil change is what, like $20?
Depends. Yeah.
Okay, for quick maths. $20.
So hold on. Your oil change in your Jeep is about $20. Oil change on my car.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously,
is a little bit
the
different.
variables change a little bit, but just for this example
Exactly,
to work it
I
out
agree.
quickly,
Okay.
let's say you change your oil, what, like every 3 months? 3, 6, 9, 12. That's 4 times a year. 20 times 4. That's $100. $100 a year, which could. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but if you add that up over a 3 or 4 year lifespan of having a car,
Yep.
it's $400 or $500. Just
Now, plus what happens if that engine breaks?
it doesn't take into account the repairs and that kind of thing that you need to put into it as well.
Right.
So again, it's a different variable that you need to look at, and again, it's a cost saving thing.
Well, and many people are complaining that EVs cost so much more upfront.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you look at the life cycle of the vehicle itself, you're actually saving air quotes. You're saving money as opposed to when you have a gas-powered vehicle and your fuel pump goes out.
I think one of the most important things just is saying you're saving, not only are you saving money, you could end up saving a lot of your personal time as well, because a lot of the manufacturers, they will send a representative out to your house,
Yeah.
or wherever
Tesla,
you are.
concierge. You
They
don't
will-
even do anything.
They'll
They
come
pick it up.
straight to you. There's no reason to go sit at the dealership.
Mm.
Get there at 9 o'clock in the morning because that's the time of your appointment, and then
Yeah.
you're still waiting at 11 o'clock for them
Until
to take your car to the
5
back.
hours later, which is
So-
lovely. But I mean, I've always had the mind frame where if you think about the EVs and what it actually costs as far as upkeep, I mean, you have tires, you have wipers,
Yeah.
and brakes. That's really the three. I wouldn't say wipers are a major thing, but those are the three things that stick out in my brain as far as maintenance.
I think you need wipers, especially in Florida.
Do you need wipers though?
I think they are essential.
Yeah,
especially
and
with the
also,
season coming up.
I was gonna say in Florida as well. If you guys have never been here, anytime it rains, everybody puts their hazard lights on. I do not. Craig does not, because we don't do that. But it's just a thing that people do down here, and I guess it signals that there is a hazard.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
As far as I remember, not illegal.
Yeah, it is illegal. But anyways, back to our main point. There's just not certain things on an EV that you have to do on a gas-powered vehicle.
Yeah.
So, EV might cost you, who knows, 8-10 grand more out of your pocket up front. But in reality, the life cycle of the vehicle, you're not replacing the transmission, you're not replacing an engine, you're not replacing the exhaust system components, emissions components. I mean, stuff like that, it gets expensive.
Talking about the price and that kind of thing, I think this is a segment in itself in just how expensive EV vehicles are, because there are a lot of different elements that go into that.
Yeah.
So I think we could table that for another discussion.
Yeah, that's a different episode.
And go into all the costs and the savings and that kind of stuff. So
Cool.
again, there, like we say, it's a completely different machine. It's a different beast. It obviously has different requirements, but just from off the top of our heads, the kind of things that are being replaced definitely saves you time, and most importantly, well, whichever one you value more, money.
Time is money.
Exactly.
You really don't save the money, by the way, you don't spend it.
Yes.
So,
Well,
it's like grocery stores do that. Oh, you saved $15. No, I didn't spend $15. Sorry.
at the end of the day, you're not
You're not-
parting with as much money out of your pocket.
Cool. And speaking of parting, we're going to move on to point number 4, and this one is potentially parting with your life.
Yeah.
Huge scary stuff about lithium ion batteries being dangerous and they catch fire easily. One thing I'm just going to say with lithium ion batteries is my laptops run off of lithium ion battery. My iPhones run off of lithium ion battery. So much technology that we have is run off of lithium ion technology.
Yeah.
I see, like, maybe a couple years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, everybody saw videos of Teslas catching on fire.
I mean, that's a freak accident kind of things.
You
It's the
had
same as
that.
when people's phones were exploding in their pockets.
Yeah, I was going to say with Samsung, especially on the airplanes,
Yeah.
which I always thought was humorous, but you couldn't bring a Samsung phone onto an airplane a couple years ago. But digressing back to what we were saying. Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be there that something could happen when it comes as far as accidents. The same thing could be said about a gasoline-powered vehicle as well.
Well, I mean, we've all seen the movies where something happens and a car crashes and the guy walks away with the massive flames behind him.
It's like the massive Michael Bay production of explosions of gasoline.
Exactly, and that is, I mean, that kind of thing does happen.
It's a reality.
Obviously, it's not going to just explode out of nowhere, but but I mean, that is a reality when you have something with diesel or petrol or any kind of flammable liquid in
Correct.
it. So.
And I think, you know, one of the big points too is the whole crash numbers thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at just Tesla, for example, I mean, they're one of the highest rated, safest vehicles in the market.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's people whose sole job is to obviously test these things and specifically to test how each component of the vehicle reacts in different kinds of crashes.
Right.
I mean, there's the Institute of Vehicle Safety. That's what they do.
Yeah.
These people are there to put in the regulations and do the testing and that kind of thing. And even if you just look at how the batteries are housed within the vehicles themselves, I mean, these things are almost cased in their own kind of armor.
Right.
So they have put a lot of thought into how these things are protected and into protecting you.
Right, and they have to too, because obviously if it's a valid concern from the general public, you're trying to sell that product to, you have to kill that concern.
Yeah.
Maybe kill wasn't the best word that I used right there. You have to diminish that concern.
Yeah, you have to put everyone's mind at rest.
Ease. Yeah. And then the other thing that actually brings to mind too is with lithium ion and EVs, things of that nature, there's certain things that now ambulance and fire people have to understand and to work on too. I mean, that's a whole different area. That's a whole retrain of you know what they typically would do if there were a gas fire.
Yeah.
So now you have to introduce that whole side of it as well. So I don't know if maybe some of that information is transferred over to what could be considered dangerous for somebody who's looking to buy an EV. I don't know if, you know, that whole thought process of how to put that EV electrical explosion out is transferred over to general public. I have no idea, but I definitely, you know, I'm at the thought process where everything, mostly 99% of what we have now is lithium ion batteries.
Yeah.
You know, down to the sensors that we have in our home that detect if the front door is open.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, just even talking about that kind of thought process in, you know, what kind of training is now required for people who go to these kind of accidents and that kind of thing. And that's why we have these discussions, because, I mean, it is something to think about. It might not be like at the forefront of everyone's mind right now.
Yeah, but if you're a firefighter or a rescue,
that's definitely
you need to know.
You got to find out. So,
right.
I mean, it's an interesting thing to look at, because again, this whole evolution of where we're going, it's touching pretty much every single element or aspect of people's lives, whether you want to believe it or not, whether you feel it.
Or whether you want to discuss it or just put your hand or your head in the sand.
It touches a lot of different
areas.
parts. Yeah.
And that couldn't be any more true. I mean, just think about, we're only at point number 4, and we've talked about infrastructure. We've talked about, you know, the fear and the anxiety of it. We've talked about the maintenance and the costs associated with that, which how is that going to transfer over to the dealerships?
Yeah.
And then now we're talking about the whole production, the safety, and, you know, the knowledge of passing down how to handle these lithium ion batteries appropriately. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that this is changing. And as far as changing, let's go to number 5, which is actually my favorite point on this entire list, which is why we wanted to go over this. The last one, Craig, what is number 5, sir?
People generally think that EVs are slow as golf carts.
No.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
It's just...
That's it. We're not going to discuss anymore. The answer is just no.
I mean, if I think of 0 to 60 for some of the cars that we've been looking at, well, I mean, just our personal vehicle does 0 to 60 in about 12 days. So EVs are a lot faster than, you know, just your average car.
I think what many people do though is they view, again, going back to what we were talking about with the IMEV. You know, obviously that thing was not fast whatsoever. It was not meant to be fast. And now, when EVs are starting to come more into the mainstream, people expect certain things to be able to do certain things
Yeah.
and be able to hit certain boxes. So, for example, if you have, like the new Tesla Roadster, you want it to be a long-range vehicle, which, granted, again, 620 miles is super long.
Yeah.
You want it to be fast. So now you're looking at kind of like what we touched base last week on the F-150 Lightning episode. You're trying to get so much stuff out of one new technology and to be able to check off all those boxes.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at, back to Tesla's Roadster. I mean, they're doing 0 to 60 in what, like 1.5?
That's quick. Which one has ludicrous mode?
Luda.
Oh, that makes me think of something now as well. The ludicrous mode and how everything is changing. What's going to happen to our favorite film industry? Or our favorite
Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know. I think we're in Fast and Furious 9.
I would.
So what's it going to be? Fast and Furious EV?
I think that would be awesome.
FFEV?
FFEV.
FFEV.
Trademark pending.
What? TM. TM.
That is something that is obviously exciting to people who drive cars and that kind of thing, is the pace in which vehicles can get from 0 to 60 in such a quick time.
I mean, that is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I still can't wrap my head around what we talked about on the F-150 last week with that time. Now you're literally cutting that in a quarter.
Yeah. Quarter mile at a time.
Wow. Is today all about Fast and Furious?
Yep.
Nice. I think we're going to call you Dom for the rest of the day today. Dominic Toretto. Monica.
I think I need to shave my head.
Yeah. Please don't do that.
I won't.
Anyways, but it's the whole thought about EVs being slow, as golf carts, it's just as the example. I don't believe it. A couple years ago, yeah, I mean, it made sense because it was still brand new technology and people were just buying it for one purpose, and it was to be good on range.
Yeah.
And now we're checking the boxes on different things, just like the Model X. Prime example. I want something that's fast, and I want something I can fit my kids in the back, and it's got gull-wing doors, which is completely badass, by the way. Like, I want gull-wing doors in my car, and that's one thing I'm not going to put in my car. But anyways, just as the thing, like, you're checking all of those boxes.
Yeah.
So it's one more thing to add to that, where it's fast, not when it used to be something that wasn't.
But that's the thing, all these different models that obviously accommodate for the different kind of buyer as well. It's changing the landscape for EVs. They're not really just reserved for, the elite with a 12-car garage and becoming something that's unobtainable to have.
Well, and there's still, obviously, like the companies like Lucid. Lucid Motors is building an incredibly gorgeous car.
Yeah.
But that, again, is really, they know their demo. They know who's going to buy those vehicles. But they are still rolling in like the whole actually being a fast vehicle.
Yeah.
They are a fast vehicle, and they're a gorgeous vehicle. But again, I don't think the EVs are nearly as slow. I mean, how many videos have we watched where Tesla Model S is destroying, an M2 or an M4 CS or something, something that's got some high horsepower in it. And it's just like the Hellcat. I've watched so many videos about Hellcat Red Eye being destroyed by a Model S.
Yeah, I mean, off the mark, they are so quick.
Well, quarter mile, I should say. Long range, long run, half mile, something like that. And obviously, towards the end of it, the Tesla loses, unfortunately.
It would be interesting to see if we could get our hands on next year R4, the BMW R4.
That's a pen in it. So writing notes in my computer. Cool. So, anyways, just to wrap it up, we're creeping up on time here. So 5 points we just went over, and we're actually going to probably do a follow-up episode on this because there's actually a lot of points and banter that can be drawn from those points. So,
and if you're watching the video and you have any misconceptions or something that you obviously want to ask questions, we can look into it for you.
Yeah.
Go and ask your friends and family as well.
If there's one that drives you the most insane, put it in the comments.
Yeah.
Let's kind of open this. We'll do some research. Yeah, we'll do. So we got Dominic Toretto and Nancy Drew apparently here. So what we'll do is any of the comments that you guys leave in down at the comment section, we'll take a dive into them, and then we can do a follow-up episode on that. So, but we want to say thanks to you guys. This again is our second episode. We're going to be pumping out content once every single week. We appreciate you guys listening. Also, would appreciate if you give us a comment, like, subscribe, share it, especially with your family, because your family would like this channel as well. So, my name is Austin.
My name is Craig.
We appreciate you guys being here. See you until next time.
Drive safely.
Bye. What?